putting more effort to say, I've got to answer this question, often doesn't work. And
Last week we mentioned something that we want to start doing in our YouTube videos to help improve our quality of those. This week we have something that we want to begin that will help improve our quality as writers, something that we want to do that will not necessarily something in our generation of material like last week's thing was for our YouTube videos, but something in our preparation that will work to eventually make us better writers. But before we get into that, Dad, why don't you give them an update of all the progress that we've made on our story since the last video we made?
All the progress. Yeah. Well, since last week, life kind of got in the way. Usually, it's been our plan that we record one of these, or we have a meeting in the daytime and we record one of these videos on Tuesdays, and then Tuesday evenings, it's our time to just sit and brainstorm and just talk about the story development. Well, life got in the way. We each have full-time work outside of the home and outside of this novel writing process. And last Tuesday evening, I had something that I was called to do outside, and we didn't have our weekly brainstorm. And we also have not had in our background processing, we haven't really made any progress on answering some of the remaining questions about plot. We've had that story, we talked about trying to connect all the why questions together, and often one of us will have an idea and we'll just talk about it as we're doing other things throughout the house. And that has not happened in the last couple of weeks.
So while we are stuck on the plot for right now, we want to find somewhere else that we can make progress. And I think for right now what that's going to be is looking into our characters a little bit more. We have some character development sheets, I think two that you found, that we want to not necessarily go through completely, but draw from both of those to create our own type of character sketch of who we want our characters to be. And we're going to start out with just, I think, one apiece, and kind of each getting to know a character really well, trying to figure out... I know a little bit about our main character, because this is an offshoot of a story that I was planning on writing years ago, and I got to know the main character somewhat well. And even though a lot has changed,
yes,
I think the main character has remained somewhat the same in who he is, even though his story is very different. But we're going to look into who our characters are and see if that can maybe help us figure out what the plot is going to be. And maybe we get to this point where we're kind of bouncing off each other, we get stuck on the characters, but we can figure out a little bit more about the plot, and then that helps us figure out the characters. And so using those back and forth to help build both of those up together.
And this is a pattern that I've found often in life, is that when you're working on trying to solve a particular problem, putting more effort to say, I've got to answer this question, often doesn't work, and it's helpful to step away and work on something that may be a little bit tangential, and then the process of looking at that one while letting go of that first question can often invite new creative thinking and open up new possibilities. One of the other things that we did in our conversation today, we just finished our internal meeting, and we added a new item to our agenda, and that is a weekly stop, start, keep analysis. This is something that I picked up in the corporate world, working with software engineering teams, and it's a discipline to help with continuous improvement with the process, not just the product. And I was coming home from breakfast this morning, had a breakfast meeting, and listened to a podcast and heard somebody referencing that and thought, that is what we need to do so that our process can continue to improve. And so that's something we're going to be doing to help us develop our craft.
So one of the things that we want to start with our process, in addition to starting using the start, stop, keep method, is starting to read more fiction. One of the things that I think you especially have seen in looking into writers groups and stuff is, in order to be a good writer, you have to read a lot of the genre that you're trying to write. I read, and I think you read, a lot more nonfiction in general than we do fiction. But we're not writing nonfiction. We're trying to write fiction, and that means we need to read fiction books to get a feel, see what good fiction looks like. And we're going to try to not just read it, but also analyze it in some sort of way. And I think you started doing that a little more than I have.
Right, and despite the busyness that we're facing, we realize that this is important for us to start. That's why it showed up on our agenda. And one of the other things, when we first started the idea of we want to read some fiction, our initial thought was, let's find the best books and read the ones that everybody raves about. And you had an idea in our conversation today that there are some New York Times best-selling authors, and that's what our journey is to become. And some of their books, despite their position as a New York Times best-selling author, some of their books have had a lot of criticism about really the quality of the craftsmanship of an individual series, perhaps, or a trilogy. And so, in addition to looking at some of the best books, we also want to spend some time looking at some of the less than best books and identify, here's a criticism, what is it about this book or this series that is a reflection of that criticism, so we can learn not only what to do, but also what not to do, and see where those differences lie.
And in light of that, our start for this week is start reading more. Even though we're both busy, we both have a lot of stuff going on in our lives, if we can carve out some time to read some fiction, get into the world of writing fiction and seeing what that feels like, that's going to help both of us when it comes time to actually writing, and even now while we're developing characters and developing plots. But we have a question for you. What are your start, stop, keeps? Not necessarily for yourself, although that might be a good question to ask yourself, but for us. This is, I think, our 6th video now.
Yes.
We're going to be releasing 8 all at once, but this is our 6th of those. What are some things that you would like us to start doing in these videos? Some things maybe you think you haven't talked about this at all, or you need to look into this detail more, or we want to know what's going on in this area. What are some things you want us to start including in these videos? And maybe what are some things that you want us to stop including? Some things that maybe just aren't interesting, or for whatever reason you think would be good if we stopped doing. And then what are some things that we should keep doing? Some things that you're like, I like that, that was interesting, that was helpful maybe. What are some things that you want us to keep doing? So let us know down in the comments some things that you want us to start, stop, and keep doing, and we'll try to look at those and use those to create even better videos for you in the future. But for now, that's all we have, and we will see you next week.